our globalist Great Reset ideals, and yet grabbing this picture that wasn't the original source, which would have been the Oval Office, right? That is, unless Joe Biden is not in the real Oval Office. Well, it's hard to say. I've showed you a couple of ideas that suggest that something's definitely wonky, and let me show you this graphic right here. On the left is a Q post that you have probably seen a number of times if you follow Q. If you don't, that's great, but here's the stringer. EAM loyalists, red 1, red 2, red 3, red 4. We're not going to go through all this because we've talked about a lot of these different kinds of signals. Many of them have already happened. Of course, POTUS has been removed from Twitter. We have had a number of blackouts, and I'm not exactly sure what they mean with the classified movement of Pelosi or Pence. That's a little bit debatable. We also know that the 10th Mountain First Marine CPSD Marine QVIR could be referring to Castle Rock in Colorado. We could be talking about a number of things. As a matter of fact, I even brought up an Operation Castle Rock, which is talking about coronavirus vaccine distribution. So there's a number of different things that we're talking about here, but we've seen a number of signals talking about red 1, red 2, so on and so forth, and it all ends with Castle Rock. In this particular graphic, they are referring to the Oval Office set over there at Castle Rock Pictures Studios. They indeed replicated this Oval Office for a number of things. That is in Culver in the Los Angeles lot there. And they originally set this for the American president, which was from Castle Rock Entertainment. It says on the right here, the Castle Rock Oval Office has since been used for Disney's Nixon and 20th Century Fox Independence Day. Of course, you can read it there. But until recently, most productions borrowed the Oval Office that Warner Brothers built for Dave. It's 1993 film about a presidential imposter. It's something that's very distinctive, and a lot of people want it, said Gary Creedle, president of Warner Brothers Studio Facilities. So now, to be clear, there are a number of studios probably at this point that do have these mock-ups of the Oval Office. You don't exactly have to get it right to do your little project or whatever. As a matter of fact, YouTube has a couple of their own studios that make a mock-up of the Oval Office. But it is an interesting fact that one of the founders of Castle Rock Entertainment is one of Trump's biggest haters, and that is one Rob Reiner, the less funny of the Reiners, meathead. And if you followed him at all on social media, and I don't actually mean click follow, or if you're just aware of his activities and his statements, he has shown an incredible amount of hatred and vitriol towards the POTUS. Almost unusually so. So as many of you may or may not know, Castle Rock is named after a fictional town in Maine that author Stephen King used for some of his books, which later became movies. And he got that name from the mountain fort that was used in William Golding's Lord of the Flies novel way back in the day, 1954. Probably just a coincidence that Stephen King is equally hateful and vile towards the POTUS on Twitter. I guess that's half of Hollywood, right? Anyway, Castle Rock Entertainment is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, very big company. But Warner Brothers is actually a division of Warner Media, which belongs to AT&T. And right about now is a great time to pump one of my recent videos entitled Nashville Evergreen, in which we talked about a curious explosion near the AT&T building. Probably completely unrelated, but you can go ahead and check it out, and I will let you know that a number 2 will be on the way. But another guy wrapped up with Castle Rock Entertainment is a guy you already know, and he's a guy that just recently resurfaced in the news. How timely, and his name is Steve Come on, man, and Bannon. Now, whether you like Steve or not, he's an interesting character way back in the day. Naval officer. Ended up co-founding Breitbart, of course, the conservative platform, but he did so much in between, and he actually made a ton of money with the Castle Rock deal. Now, he was running an investment banking situation. He was wrapped up with Westinghouse, and they were trying to sell Castle Rock Entertainment. He helped broker that deal to Turner Broadcasting, and this would have been back when Ted Turner was still alive. But because he brokered that deal, it made him a grip of cash, and his little fee that he was going to make, he ended up waiving it and said, instead of that, why don't you give me some stake into Seinfeld, which was a very successful sitcom. Now, Seinfeld ended up making over $3 billion in reruns alone. So Steve Bannon If he only made 1% of that, he still made tens of millions of dollars. So Steve did very well, and he's been doing well for quite some time, and he's got some interesting connections. But even before Breitbart, he was making films. He made Indian Runner with Sean Penn. And it was right around that time, maybe a little bit later, that he became a partner in this entertainment industry firm known as The Firm. And this is a big talent management agency out there in Santa Monica, California. Bannon's partner is a guy by the name of Jeff Quatnetz. He is from Brooklyn and still has a lot of really big clients, and so does The Firm. Another one of their partners was Rich Frank, who is a former president of Disney Studios. Lots of big names here: Leonardo DiCaprio, Cameron Diaz, Robert De Niro, Kelly Clarkson, Korn, Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, Dixie Chicks, Linkin Park, Backstreet Boys, J-Lo, Britney Spears, Limp Bizkit, and D.C. Pearson. They only represented Britney Spears for 1 month in 2007. Evidently, she was too difficult to work with. She was probably going knucking futz on them. Who knows? But you might want to file away some of those names in your craw because they may pop up in the near future. Bannon was also vice president on the board of Cambridge Analytica. You may remember this firm. They were a data analytics firm, and they were allegedly messing with the 2016 election. Now, what's curious about that is that it's owned by the Mercer family, and they're probably worth doing their own video on, but they have a massive Mercer family foundation. If you'd like to know more, you could probably just go searching that, and there's plenty of stories that could be told there. But they also co-own Breitbart News. And you all remember Bannon as his role as presidential advisor. Bannon has long been wrapped up with a lot of DC knuckleheads too. I want to read you something from the Wiki. Bannon was removed from his NSC role in early April 2017 in a reorganization by U.S. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, whom Bannon had helped select. Remember, it was H.R. McMaster that was after Ezra Cohen Watnick, who was a protege of Michael Flynn. Some White House officials said Bannon's main purpose in serving on the committee was as a check against former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, who had resigned in February of 2017 for misleading the vice president about a conversation with the Russian ambassador to the United States. And of course, he was pardoned for that. Who else was just recently pardoned? Steve Bannon. Hence, with Flynn gone, Bannon was no longer needed. Bannon reportedly opposed his removal from the council and threatened to quit if President Trump went forward with it, although Republican mega donor Rebecca Mercer, wow, it's almost like I just told you to remember that name, and there it is. I hope you remembered it. I'm sure you did. Urged him to stay. The White House said Bannon had not attempted to leave, and Bannon said any indication that he had threatened resignation was total nonsense, yada, yada, yada. And of course, after all that, Bannon hooked up with Guo Wengwei, or you may know him as Miles Kwok, the billionaire from China. And he, like Bannon, is a bit of a flashy guy. The two of them went in on GTV Media Group. Wow, it's almost like everywhere we look, we see entertainers. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But he's also got a ton of coin. Beijing Zenith Holdings. That's a lot of money right there. Now, Kwok is not very popular with China right now. He was out there floating on that yacht for quite some time with Steve Bannon until he got pardoned. And GTV has been playing a lot of interesting stuff, including the testimony of Dr. Li Mengyan, who was one of the whistleblowers talking about the coronavirus being created in Wuhan labs. There is another whistleblower who claims to be sitting on a ton of information on the Biden family. And from what they've been leaking, it appears to be extremely legit, including video and pictures. And I'm sure many of you have seen it. Please, please, please do not post pictures of Hunter Biden and children on the internet. I shouldn't have to tell people that. 99% of my audience knows that. I love you, but if you post that on my feed, I will block you. No questions asked. But truly, we get it. It appears to be legit, but it leads me to my question, which is going to lead me to my bigger point. If indeed they've got all of this, why are they gatekeeping it? Was this a negotiation tool in order to get the pardon? Is it possible that Trump, who is another media mogul, might need Steve Bannon, media mogul, and Miles Kwok Money Man Media.